A socialist split decision in Florida, the far left looking to capitalize on its electoral momentum and pulling off a big upset in the Sunshine State. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Dagan McDowell, Brian Bremberg, and Lydia Hu. And with us for the hour, Endeavor PAC founder Tiffany Smiley. Great to have you. Progressive State Rep Angie Nixon knocking out nationally known Trump impeachment witness Alex Vindman, despite being outraised by more than 20-1. Nixon supports abolishing ICE, a nationwide rent freeze, socialized health care, and the list goes on and on.
I want to abolish for-profit prisons because I believe right now people aren't educating our children and they're ushering them into the school-to-prison pipeline because they want to exploit labor.
Now is the time for us to stand up and lock arms and be willful accomplice in this fight against fascism.
HB 1D. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted?
On the other hand, in one of the country's most competitive House districts, pro-Israel Democrat and establishment favorite Jared Moskowitz fended off a DSA-backed challenger, despite the progressive movement throwing everything it had into that race. But the question remains, can DSA candidates turn their base's energy into real wins in November? And that's really what is at stake here. You can win a primary, sure, that's with your voter base, but can you take the race home when it counts?
Yeah, I think that's the real question, and it's just showing the continued fracture of the Democrat Party when you look at these races in Florida. Vindman was backed by national Democrats. He had Chuck Schumer behind him, where Nixon had Omar and Tlaib behind her. So it's fascinating to watch. There's a split in fundraising. There's a split in energized voters. But the DSA is capitalizing on something that I think Republicans need to pay attention to heading into the general elections, is they have a young, energized base that they're really feeding this free messaging to. And it's resonating, and they're turning out and they're voting. But the Democrats have some problems on their hands. Nixon winning in Florida is huge. You know, they like to say they're the big tent party and that the DSA is welcome and we're all welcome in this party. They like to say that maybe these DSA candidates are just winning in these vacuums, you know, in these certain areas. But it's in New York, it's in Colorado, it's in Michigan, and now it's in Florida.
Yeah. That surprised me, too. And it felt like the DSA was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see where it might stick. And it did stick somewhere. Yes, but the numbers were pretty incredible. Sorry about that, Brian. The numbers were incredible because Vindman reportedly had $14.6 million. Nixon only had $625,000.
Yes.
She had nothing.
Right.
I mean, well, he had 17 plus times as much money as she had or something like that.
Incredible.
I mean, so you got to ask yourself, is the issue with Democrats that the DSA is so powerful and has like captured the imagination of the nation and the party and they're just unstoppable? Or is it just the case that run-of-the-mill Democrat candidates are so bad?
Well, the party's bad.
Like Vindman.
Right now.
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, I know Vindman got kind of all the attention around the Russia stuff, right? What else? I mean, what else about him is really distinctive? Does he have a set of policy views that are really distinctive? Do you look at him and say, there's a leader right there? I don't know, but it doesn't seem like they do. And Nixon, for whatever she maybe lacks in policy cohesiveness, she seems energetic at least. So maybe that's what people got excited about. Moskowitz won. Okay, he fended off Larkin. And Moskowitz, I give him credit for this much. He's not afraid to go out and talk to people. He comes on Fox all the time and debates and discusses. And he doesn't talk to people who agree with him. And I don't agree with him and everything, certainly. But the guy he's willing to get out there and defend coherent views. And I think that matters. So much of the story has been, wow, DSA. Capturing the imagination out there in front. And I just wonder, are we overjudging DSA? And are we just forgetting that Democrats for a long time have drained their bench of normal people to almost zero? And that's what they're reaping now.
What do you think of that question, Dagan?
Say it again.
I think Democrats lack a good stable of normal candidates. And that's why the DSA is becoming popular in that party, Dagan.
The DSA, God, I hate to say anything positive about socialists, but they're saying something new or different to a group of voters who are tired of hearing the same old thing. That what are the Democrats promising? More spending. And quite frankly, what have the Republicans done? Spend more. They did, the permanent tax cuts, that's great. But they're still spending more, and the nation's deep in debt, and they're not happy with the current economic climate, if you will. And that's not, there are a lot of people out there who vote, who are liberal, who work. I'm not talking about people who are just, sitting at home and ordering DoorDash on, their mommy and daddy's credit cards. But so I always talk about President Trump, like it is policy and not personality. I will talk about his policies all day long, and they are hugely beneficial to small businesses, big businesses, and individuals. What he's done just with deregulation and tax cuts, closing the border, and our energy sector. That being said, what is this woman? This is where the Republicans are going to have to bore in on. What is this woman back in Florida? She backs taking away people's private health insurance. If you're in favor of Medicare for all, that's where you stand. So 13 million voters in Florida buy to your private health insurance. And also Medicare for all will put the Medicare as it exists today in jeopardy for all of the older Floridians. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Secondly, emptying the prisons. How many, messaging. How many prisons or penitentiaries in the state of Florida are you, the voter, okay with shutting down? I think that's how you have to frame what is going on, because that resonates with everyone. If you've got a job, you've got private health insurance for the most part, and is crime a worry for you?
Yeah.
If the empty prisons are emptied, because that's what she stands for.
Now, on the flip side of the coin, and you talked about policy, we had Byron Donalds on this morning, Mornings with Maria, and he won his primary for governor in Florida, and he was talking about his background in business and all the things he was going to work on. He has solid ideas on how to reform healthcare in the state without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And his opponent who won the primary was David Jolly, former Republican. So it sort of gives you a different picture of what's happening overall in that state. I'm not necessarily sure this Nixon has a chance to win, but they put them out there to kind of test and see. But they also know, for example, for governor, that you needed better choices.
Yeah. I think what's interesting to see also is kind of the messaging around, is Angie Nixon even a member of the DSA? Coming into the election when it really wasn't sure what was going to happen here, the DSA was kind of like distancing themselves from her. They weren't really claiming her as a candidate. She was like one-time affiliated, and now she's come out with this win, and they're saying, oh, she's a socialist. She's one of us now. So now it's convenient for them to say this. So I don't even count this as really a DSA win. I think to the point about what do we consider this, I think it's more of a rejection of the establishment. I think it kind of reveals more problems with Vindman down in Florida. People are tired of hearing about the candidate that just wants to point out what's wrong with Trump. No one cares about what you have to say about what's wrong with Trump. They want to know about what you're going to do to make their lives better. And so they're just voting for the alternative. On the money issue, money, it used to talk, and it's just not. Axios had an article out earlier this week profiling all of these races, all these primary races across the country, and how the candidates that have outspent are not winning. Haley Stevens outspent Al Sayed almost by 10-1. She lost. Angie Craig beat out Peggy Flanagan. I could go down the list. James Tallarico beat out Jasmine Crockett. I mean, it's just, money just doesn't matter. I think when you're looking at these younger voters, they're really looking for the alternative, and it's just about what have we not heard from before. And right now, they like the sound of free childcare, rent stabilization.
Yeah, what matters is what people think and how much credence you want to give the polls. But there's a new poll saying there's a new poll saying that of those people polled, they favor Democrats on the economy by 6 points. That's shocking to me. But I also think it's why some of these candidates are gaining traction, because you grab onto this word affordability like a dog with a bone and you don't let go of it. And they have reconstructed a narrative that when you look back to the Biden administration, the economy actually was a huge mess, disaster, far worse than what you're dealing with today. And yet somehow that's how the polling comes out.
Yeah, because they are tired of status quo. That is exactly what we are seeing. And these are younger, energized voters who maybe had these elite educations and they thought they should come out and be on the top. They forgot about the American dream. And maybe Republicans need to talk about capitalism in a different way that is more exciting and makes more sense maybe to some of these voters. But looking back at this whole, the whole picture, I guess, from a bigger lens, is this really started with Obama. You think of Obamacare and the government takeover of our medical systems and insurance giants. You then trickle down to Joe Biden, the Inflation Production Act. It didn't do anything to reduce inflation. So what Democrats are really good at is playing this long game where they create a crisis that then they can turn and use their talking points to try to win more voters back.
I want to put that full screen back up if we can, Dagan, just for 1 second. I'm sorry. On the economy, the edge for the Democrats was +9. But on inflation and prices, it's +10. On income inequality, it's +22. That's staggering to me.
It's that 22 is staggering. One thing I wanted to point out that maybe is very telling, there was a special election in the Pennsylvania State House, District 12, yesterday in Butler County, and the Democrat appears to have defeated the Republican, and that is a +30 Republican district.
Wow.
That the Democrat Brandon Dukes defeated his Republican opponent. That the 2024 State House race, the Republican won by about 30 points. President Trump won that district by by 18 points in 2024, and it just swung D.
It's a massive.
One thing about Jolly, I can't imagine that anybody will ever refer to him as even a former Republican, because he has done his level best to be anti-Republican, anti-Trump, anti-everything for years and years and years. And I say that personally because I've witnessed him online go after someone who works here based on something they said on air and take it wildly out of context and attack that person with what they said that was completely innocuous. And when corrected on air, just dragged it. It was complete and utter attempt at cancel culture, and for no other reason that we work for Fox. And I just find that, is that the kind of person that you would ever want in a position of power? And it was like someone who did not deserve that. No one deserves it.
Well, they can be mean.
And that's him.
Yeah.
That was a few years ago, but still can't. Woke one is just never went away.
Right.
It's still there, and it's just living in their hearts and
They're
minds.
laughing at it now to try to make it go away, but people have to remember.
I witnessed him do it, him and someone in his family, I think.
Okay, so big moves in the markets today. I just want to take a look at this one. The biggest mover is Moderna. Shares soaring today after an experimental personalized cancer vaccine from both Moderna and Merck showed positive initial results in the first ever late-stage trial. It's an mRNA-based shot to treat skin cancer. The trial met the goals and significantly extended the time patients had lived without their melanoma recurring. This is a huge breakthrough, and you can see
130%
on the stock. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's great. I mean, that it's like a miracle. It's a modern miracle if you can actually, if this comes to fruition. How awesome is that? And I wonder how much AI was part of enabling that breakthrough.
I mean, melanoma is horrible, and so to have something that might be a breakthrough like this.
We pro-vax. Yeah.
For this.
Yeah.
Well, for life saving,
yeah.
Well, and I think it goes
absolutely.
back to investing in American innovation and in American research. And price fixing isn't always the answer. Free markets win. And the more we invest in American biotech and next generation treatments, the healthier we will be and the more money in Americans' pockets.